So welcome to lesson 14 of our Learn Python series. In this lesson we'll do practice exercises to make use of some of the conditional structures that you've been learning about. In this lesson we'll briefly recap some of the Python skills that you've learned in the last few lessons. We'll go through a worked example and then I'll finish by giving you some further suggestions for extra programming tasks. Just to recap, when we create a program to meet a requirement, we use the IPO model. That means we think about the inputs, the processing, and the output that is required. The programming skills that you've learned include the use of relational operators to create Boolean expressions, which I also sometimes call logical tests. We've used conditional structures, including if-else, elif and nested if structures, and we completed this run of lessons by looking at exception handling, which is a way of preventing the program from crashing if your user enters bad data. So the programming challenge that we're going to look at right now is to create a program where the user inputs a number on the Beaufort scale and a place name, and the program outputs a storm warning if the wind speed is high enough. So what do I mean by the Beaufort scale? Well, the Beaufort scale is a number scale, and numbers 0 through to 6 represent calm or breezy conditions, and then the numbers from 7 through to 12 represent increasingly high winds from a moderate gale all the way up to hurricane force winds. We can also represent these using wind speeds, and I've given equivalent wind speeds in miles per hour. We're not going to use that data just now, but you could use it for extension work. So we're going to create a program where the user inputs the Beaufort number and a location, the name of a location, and it outputs a warning message. In order to turn the inputs into the outputs, we've got to convert the Beaufort number into a wind name, such as strong gale or hurricane, and we've got to concatenate the full message with the type of wind, the location, and just make it up into a proper sentence. So let's think about the inputs. Open Python and start creating this program now. So you're going to have to use input commands to get the name of the location and the Beaufort number. Because we're going to process it as a number value, it needs to be converted to an integer, and remember to employ exception handling so that the program doesn't crash if the user enters a value that you can't convert into an integer. So all of that we've done before, so I'll leave that up to you. If you're not clear about any of it, go back to the previous 2 or 3 lessons. Then in our processing, I suggest you use the elif structure to turn the Beaufort number into a wind name like gale or storm, and use relational operators to design those logical tests. You can add validation so that there's a final default value if they forget to enter some of the important information that you need. And you'll use the concatenation symbol, which is a plus sign, to join together the name of the wind, the name of the location, and a few other words to make it up into a proper sentence. Once again, everything there we have done in previous lessons. So pause now. If you haven't done so already, create the commands to input the Beaufort number and a location, add elif, validation and concatenation to complete the processing. Add the final output command, which outputs the hurricane warning, and then try testing the program. You should run it several times, and each time enter a different Beaufort number and a different location. Here's a suggested output that you might get if you entered the number 12 and the location Nuneaton. But try a bunch of different things, including invalid data. And when you've got your program working, here are some further suggestions. Adapt the program so that the user enters wind speed instead of Beaufort number. So if they enter a wind speed of 50, it's a storm. You could also give the user a choice. You could start the program by saying, do you want to enter wind speed or Beaufort number, and use a small menu to allow them to decide which of the two they're going to enter. You can improve the output message so that it shows the day and time for the warning. Again, you'll have to think about how you want to make that work. If you look up Beaufort speeds on the internet, for instance in Wikipedia, you'll find some descriptions of what the conditions are in the different types of wind speed. So for instance, trees may be blown over, or danger to shipping, and you could use the ELIF structure to add further descriptions to your warning message. And I also saw on Wikipedia that you can also derive the wind speed and the Beaufort number from the height of waves out at sea. So you could adapt the program so it could be used by people at sea. By measuring wave height, they would be able to determine the Beaufort conditions. Okay, so those are just some ideas for further work to explore the use of conditional structures. So this brings the second of our 2 sequences of lessons to a conclusion. And in the next series of lessons, we'll look at a very powerful programming structure, which is the use of loops. And by now, you're becoming quite an expert programmer. So well done for sticking with the lessons.